Welcome. I am Mother Tombia and I am a seer. I am one of the mothers that see. This is my speciality, if you like. I have other skills as well as a healer, but the main aspect of myself was to seer. So even if I was helping somebody as a wise woman, which sometimes we were called wise women, as for an illness, whether they had some cough or headache, anything like that, even though I was trained to use certain medicines and different kinds of healing opportunities, whenever I would connect with people to heal in using these other skills, always it was natural for me to see into the larger picture of the headache or the cough or what have you. Sometimes it was not appropriate to explain to the patient what I saw, and other times they wouldn't believe it anyway. But that was my special gift. Some people would come just to have the seeing or the searing experience. They did not want to be healed. They did not see that they had any issues, or they perhaps were not ill. So they did not come for the other skills. They came for this particular one, and they wanted to see beyond. They wanted to see beyond. When I was practicing, you would say alive, we didn't call it the future. We didn't say that what is going to happen in the future. We didn't use that word. We would use this word beyond. What is going to happen beyond? Meaning beyond now, or beyond the point that I'm going to, what is going to happen beyond that. Often it was difficult to tell people what was beyond, because it wasn't what they wanted to hear. And the time that I lived, it was very hierarchical. So you could not tell somebody who was considered higher than you in society something that they didn't want to hear. So you had to be very creative about how you presented that, because if you told them everything was going to be all right and then it was not, then you would be wrong, and then there would be recriminations. So you couldn't tell them when something wasn't going to be right that it was going to be right. You had to word it and couch it in terms where it was acceptable. So that made me very creative. It also made me bold, and I had to really draw on the courage that is naturally within a human being. I had to really draw on that courage, because sometimes I had to speak quite plainly, but as I've said, couch it in terms that was not too bold. The place that I lived is what you would call in the east of Europe, and I actually lived in a town, quite a big town. Well, by the standards of that day, quite a big town. And my family was in that town for many generations, so we did not move from the countryside into the town. We were in the town for many generations. The skills that I had were in my family group, so it seemed normal for me to learn the healing skills from my mother and my grandmother and my aunt, and my sister and myself were taught these skills just as a matter of everyday life. We were not taught to read and write. It was not something that was even considered necessary, but we were taught a language, if you like, a written language that was known to us, which described the work, the medicines, or what to do in a particular situation. So it was mainly an oral tradition, but there was also a written tradition. But that written tradition was, if you like, a language that we developed, that the family developed, because they did not learn to read and write. And of course, initially it started as pictures, if you like, symbols of and then that became symbols. So you might have a particular plant which would have been kept initially to show, you know, the real plant dried, then drawn, and then that became a symbol. So whenever we saw that symbol, we would know that it meant that particular plant. And when that symbol was mixed with another symbol, we would know that that meant that we use that plant with that, or we use that plant for that. So we created our own, what you can say now, symbolic language in a written form. So as you can see, it was a family business, and it was interesting because in the time that I lived, it was quite common for every member of the family to work, to bring money into the home. Just because you were a woman did not mean that you had to stay at home and not work. It was considered not only acceptable and normal, but necessary. It was part of the human experience to develop and to work. Of course, women and men did very different things. There was not crossover. You could not cross over. So it was unlikely that you would have a male healer. It was always the woman. So for us it was a family business, and we were not a large family, but we all lived in the same house. Even when you got married, you continued to live in the same house. So there was quite a few of us in that house. We were it was interesting as well for us, because very often people like us, wise women, healers, medicine people, were often banished, if you like, to the outskirts of the village or the town, or even right away from the general population. But we, for whatever reason, whether we arrived when the town was small and it was built up around, but we were quite in the center of town, and we did not ever experience in my lifetime or my ancestors, my mother and grandmother's lifetime, we did not ever experience being ostracized or people frightened, keeping away from us. We did not have that experience at all. We were respected as, if you like, mid-level merchants would be respected. So we had a very prosperous, fruitful, interesting and beautiful life. Not that things were not difficult. There was often illness, plagues, or not plagues, but illness where it spread very quickly. There was famine, there was weather that we were not expecting. there was war, people around fighting for land and so on and so forth. So it was not always, it was not the bed of roses, but it was a good life, and I am very happy that I had that experience. So thank you so much for listening. Hope you have enjoyed our my chat, and again, I am Mother Tombia, one of the seers, and I am the representative, in fact, of all of the seers, the representative voice. So if you would like to connect with us, myself or anybody else, please feel free to do that. We would really enjoy that kind of connection and communion with you. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you.